Nature and the weather can strike with unexpected force. It happens in many parts of the world. And disasters like this can be more and more extreme as the climate slowly changes. Not even the richest countries can stop nature. But we can all do many things to protect ourselves and our communities from the worst effects of disaster. If we know what to do, we can be prepared. We can save lives, reduce the level of damage, and recover more quickly if disaster does strike. Working with local organizations in more than 50 countries, Christian Aid has found that people survive disaster better if they've prepared. They can do this by finding out what can happen and organizing themselves. By working together with organizations like government and charities, and by finding ways of becoming stronger and richer. This video suggests ways you and your community can be ready if disaster strikes. Start by organizing a community meeting. Discuss the types of disasters you might face and how they might affect you. Draw a map of your village and show which homes and which fields are most at risk. If necessary, ask for help from specialists like local officials and aid agencies. Talk about how people could be warned of dangers before it's too late, and learn where the safest place is located. Being prepared means taking action with your community now, so that when disaster does strike, you are able to cope better. Form a committee to plan what to do if a disaster hits your community. The committee should discuss with the community who will take responsibility for different things, who can do what. They can identify things like houses or crops that could be vulnerable. Do what you can to protect these assets. Identify the safest places for shelter and refuge, and for storing valuables and an emergency supply of food. Agree how these supplies will be distributed in a way that's fair. Plan ways the community can be warned that a disaster may strike. You can use radios, telephones, sirens, or megaphones. Talk to local government and discuss how information that bow to the community effectively. Plan how to escape by discussing where the safe refuges are, what boats or vehicles could get people away, whether you could make aids to assist your escape, like a raft. Encourage people to learn to swim. Work out what can be done to help the most vulnerable people, those who are very young, elderly, disabled, or injured. Discuss how you can get help from people like the local government or from charities. Start a community savings fund to be used after a disaster to help rebuild and re-establish jobs. In addition to being prepared, there are also things you can do to minimize the impact of disasters. Try to build houses which are safer if there is a disaster. They should be strong, and they should be built away from low-lying or vulnerable areas. Also try to look after your area and your natural resources. You could build simple flood defences using locally available material. The whole community can help. You might plant mangroves or dig drainage channels so flooding is less extreme. The more ways people have of earning a living, the more flexible they can be if a disaster does happen. Local government and local NGOs might be able to help you obtain emergency equipment like boats, radios, life vests and first aid kits. They might also be able to help with planning how your community can learn new skills and be better able to look after itself. You should ask them how they will keep you informed if there is a disaster threat or a warning of bad weather. You can train your own community so they can search for and rescue people if there's been a disaster. This can include first aid training. Finally, try to educate everyone about disasters. Include the whole community, men, women, girls and boys. Use community theatre, songs and posters, or anything that will help people pay attention and become more informed about the risks and how they can protect themselves and others. The important thing is to remember that if a disaster does happen, there are no guarantees. But if you have prepared, you have a much better chance of coming through in good shape.